Today I'm going to be using this beautiful sequin velvet fabric to make a pair of fancy joggers. Hi there, welcome to my channel. My name is Carmen and I am just someone who loves to sew her own clothes and loves to show you how to do it too. In today's video, I'm going to be using this beautiful sequin velvet fabric that I was gifted from Minerva.com to make a pair of fancy joggers. But basically, I just love joggers. In fact, I am actually wearing a pair of joggers right now that you can't see, but that is okay. So I just really like joggers. They're super comfy. I wear them all the time. So I just thought it might be time to try to make a pair of fancier joggers that I can wear when I just want to look fancy while I'm lounging around, or that I could wear out to some sort of event or something if I ever were to go to an event, which is not very likely, but most likely they'll just get worn around the house, but that's still fun to make something fancy to just wear around home. So that is what I'm going to be doing today. So let's get started.
Alright, so first things first, we need to cut out all of our pieces for these pants. So I am using a joggers pattern that I made based off of a pair of joggers that I already had and that I really liked, and I did actually make a video about that, so I will link that in the description if you want to learn how to make your own joggers pattern for these. So out of my sequin fabric, I'm going to be cutting out 2 of the back leg pieces, 2 of the front leg pieces, and 2 of the pocket bags. And then for the other pieces, I'm going to be using a different fabric because I didn't want any of the sequins against my skin. So for the waistbands, ankle cuffs, and the pocket facings, I'm going to be using a different fabric. So I decided to go with this gray sweater knit fabric that I had left over from another project. So I had just enough left over to get the pieces that I needed out of it. So from this fabric, I cut my waistband as well as both of my ankle cuffs. And I also cut my pocket facings in this fabric as well. So once all the pieces are cut out, now comes the excruciatingly tedious part of this project, and that is cutting all of the sequins out of the seam allowances. So my seam allowance for this pattern is 1/4 of an inch, so I just cut approximately 1/4 of an inch in. I cut the sequins out of the seam allowances about 1/4 of an inch in from the outside edge using a pair of regular scissors, not my sewing scissors. That would be very bad. It would make your sewing scissors extremely dull. So this took me days and days and days of cutting sequins, but it is worth it because you do not want to sew over too many of these because you could end up with a bent or broken needle or sequins flying everywhere. It's just not a good thing. And it's also better, especially if you don't have your joggers lined, it's better not to have any sequins in the seam allowances or else they'll make the seams probably quite itchy against your legs. So once I had cut all of the sequins out of the seam allowances on all of my pieces, it was at this point that I realized that I had in fact cut the same back leg piece twice rather than cutting a left and a right piece. So I had to then go back and cut out another leg piece, which thankfully I had enough fabric left, and then cut the sequins out of that one as well. So it was very disappointing to think I was done and then realize I had to cut another piece because I had messed up. But so yes, pay attention to making sure that you cut the right and the left leg pieces and don't cut the same leg piece twice. And enjoy cutting sequins. So with all my pieces prepped and the sequins cut out of all the seam allowances, I could start putting these pants together. So I like to start with the pockets. So I'm going to start with putting the pockets together. So first what I'm going to do is pin the pocket facings to the front leg pieces. So I'm just going to line them up right sides together along that curve, that pocket curve, with the pocket facing right sides together with the front pattern piece. And I'm just going to pin along that curve, and then I'm going to stitch the pocket facing to the front piece. And I'm going to go ahead and do that for both front leg pieces. Alright, so my pocket facings are sewn on to the fronts of my pant legs, and now what I'm going to do is understitch the facings so that they don't roll towards the outside of the pocket, because we want them to be all tucked nice and out of the way, so the understitching will help with that. So to do that, I'm going to press the seam allowance towards the pocket facings and away from the pant legs, and then I'm going to stitch the seam allowance to the pocket facings right inside that seam line. And then I'm going to turn them under and press them, and that's going to help keep the pocket facings out of the way so that they don't roll towards the outside. Alright, so my understitching is done, and as you can see, you can't see that line of stitching from the outside. It's only on that facing, not through the sequins at all. And that's just going to keep the pocket in place and make sure that you don't see the facing peeking out when I wear them. So next we are going to attach the pocket bags to finish up these pockets. So first we want to make sure that we choose the right pocket bag for each side. So I like to lay it like it's going to look when it's constructed so that I know for sure that I chose the right side because I have sewn them on backwards before, and then you look and you're like, oh no, the wrong side of the pocket is showing. So anyways, then you're going to want to flip them upside down towards the wrong side and pin the pocket bag to the pocket facing. We're not pinning anything to the actual pant leg. We're only pinning the pocket bag and the pocket facing, and they're going to be right sides together. So the sequin side of the pocket bag is going to be facing the same direction as the sequin side of the pant leg, which is going to be touching the right side of the pocket facing. And then we're going to pin those together only along that curved edge, that long curved edge. So I'm not going to be pinning the top or the side, I'm only pinning that curved edge. And then I'm going to sew the pocket facing and the pocket bag together where I pinned along that long curved edge, making sure that I'm not catching the pant leg front in any of my stitching, because we don't want to attach anything to the actual pant leg right now. Alright, so my pocket bags are on, and next what I like to do is just smooth out that pocket and pin it to the front pant legs at that side and front areas where it's not secured. And that's just to keep it from like flopping around and getting out of place. You could baste it if you like with a long stitch, but I usually just pin it and then it ends up getting caught in the seams later on, in the side seams and the waistband. And now it is finally time to really start putting these pants together. So I have one of the front pant legs laying right sides up, and then I'm going to place the corresponding back pant leg on top of it with right sides down so that they're right sides together. And then I'm going to pin it all the way down the side seam from the waist area down to the ankle, and then also I'm going to pin the inner leg seam, so lining up the crotch seams and pinning it all the way down to the ankle on the inner leg seam as well. And then I'm going to take this to my sewing machine and sew the side seam and the inner leg seam, and then I'm going to repeat the process for the other pant leg. So at this point I have two separate pant legs and I need to attach them at the crotch seam. So I have one pant leg that is inside out and one that is right sides out. And then I'm going to place the pant leg that is right sides out inside of the pant leg that is wrong sides out. And that is going to make it so that the right sides of the two legs match up along the crotch seam. And then I'm going to pin the crotch seam, pinning the fronts to the fronts and the backs to the backs, making sure you line up the seam at that inner leg, and just pin that U-shaped crotch seam with right sides together, and then sew that entire U-shaped seam. My crotch seam sewn now, so now I can pull the pant leg that's on the inside out of the other pant leg and then turn the pants right sides out, and then we basically have a pair of pants just without a waistband. So that is our next step. We are going to tackle the waistband and the ankle cuffs, and we're actually almost done. So I'm going to grab my fabric that I have cut for my waistband and my two ankle cuffs. And the first thing I'm going to do is fold the waistband in half with the right sides together, and I'm going to pin it at that shorter end so that we're going to form a loop. And then I am going to repeat that same process with the two ankle cuffs, folding them right sides together, pinning the shorter ends, and then we will end up with 3 fabric loops, one for the waistband that's longer, and then 2 smaller loops for the ankle cuffs. So I'm going to then take these to my serger, and I'm just going to sew each of them along the edge that we pinned with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Alright, so now that I have that sewn, I am going to turn these loops right sides out, and then I'm going to take these to my ironing board, and I'm going to be pressing the seam allowances to one side on each of them. It doesn't matter which side. And then after I have that done, I'm going to fold each of the loops in half all the way around to form my 2-inch or so waistband. I think it's actually 2.5 inches, but anyways, I'm going to fold it in half all the way around with wrong sides together to form my waistband, matching up the raw edges along the bottom. And I'm going to press that with my iron to get it nice and flat, and then I'm going to pin it. And I'm going to repeat that with the waistband and both the ankle cuffs. Next, I'm going to put 4 equally spaced pins into the bottom edge of the waistband as well as both the ankle cuffs. So to do that, I put in 1 pin. I usually start at the seam and then I fold it in half and find the spot exactly opposite that, so that'll split the waistband in half. Then I line up the 2 pins at the center of the waistband and then put 1 pin on each side where the fabric forms a fold. So that will get us 4 equally spaced pins. So we're going to need to do that along the raw edged side of the waistband as well as both the ankle cuffs. Then I need to repeat that same process and add 4 equally spaced pins to the ankles as well as the waistline of the pants. So this is going to give us something we can line up the pins to on the cuffs so that we can make sure that it's equally stretched around that area. So I'm just repeating the same process that I used to add my 4 pins to the waistband and the ankle cuffs. Only this time I'm adding them to the ankle edges as well as the waistband edge on the pants. So I've got my pins in this ankle edge, so now what I'm going to do is pin my ankle cuff, one of my ankle cuffs, to this ankle. So I'm just going to line up one of the pins on the ankle cuff with one of the pins on the pant leg. Then I'm going to take out one of the pins and repin that area and then remove the remaining pin. So basically it's just connecting that area of the ankle cuff with that same area of the ankle edge by lining up the pins. And then I'm going to repeat that with the next set of pins and then repeat that with the third and then the fourth set of pins. And this is just going to make sure that when we stretch our ankle cuff to attach it, that it is equally stretched around that entire ankle area, because we don't want it to be stretched more on one side than the other, because then it'll look and feel wonky when I wear it. So there will be more fabric to the actual ankle edge than the cuff, and that's so that it creates that effect of gathering up and pulling in the fabric once it's sewn. And then I'm just going to repeat that same process to pin the ankle cuff to the other leg as well as to pin the waistband to the waistline. The next step is to attach the ankle cuffs and the waistband where we had it pinned with either a zigzag stitch or with your serger. So that is what I have done here, and it is looking so cute. But I did realize at this point that I had forgotten to include the elastic, and I had sewn the whole thing closed. So the thing to take away is, when you sew on your ankle cuffs, don't worry about it. I don't include elastic, so you can sew all the way around. However, it's best to remember to leave an opening in the waistband that's probably 3 to 4 inches wide enough that you can insert your elastic later. But because I did not remember to leave an opening when I attached my waistband, I now get the honor of seam ripping them out with my trusty seam ripper. So I'm just going to be seam ripping an opening in my waistband that's about 3 to 4 inches long, just long enough I can fit my elastic. Thankfully, I did not sew this on my serger, so it was pretty easy to pull out the zigzag stitches. Next, you just need to cut a piece of your 2-inch elastic that is comfortable around your waist. So I basically just pulled the elastic around my waist about where the pants would end up sitting at my waist, and just cut it to a length that was comfortable, plus about a 1/2 inch for seam allowance. Next, I just need to thread my elastic through the waistband, through that opening that I just seam ripped. So you can attach either some sort of bodkin or a safety pin to the end of your elastic to allow you to hold on to it, and then just work it through that waistband. The one thing you want to be careful of is just to make sure that the elastic doesn't roll at all. You want to make sure that it's sitting flat and in the same direction all the way around. And then you also want to make sure that you don't allow that loose end, the tail end of the elastic, to disappear into the opening and go hide in the waistband, because we need both ends of the elastic sticking out of the opening at the end so that we can attach them to form a loop. So now that my elastic is threaded all the way through and I've made sure that it's not twisted, I'm just going to slightly overlap the ends of the elastic, and then I'm going to take it to my sewing machine and just sew those two ends together with a zigzag stitch. Alright, so here it is. The elastic is sewn together, and I do like to go over it multiple times with my zigzag stitch, so I usually go forward and then back, forward and then back one more time, so it's covered about 4 times with the zigzag stitch, just because this is an area that's going to get a lot of stress when I wear it, because it's constantly being stretched and then retracted back when I take it off, and so I just want to make sure it's super secure. Then I can just stretch the waistband so that the fabric is distributed evenly around the elastic. And then the very last thing that I need to do is just flip that waistband down and then pin that opening closed. And then I'm just going to take it to my sewing machine and just sew that opening closed again. Just making sure that I'm not catching the elastic in my stitching and that I'm only going through those 3 layers, the 2 layers of the waistband and the 1 layer of the pants. And then once that opening is sewn shut, then the pants are completely done. Alright, so here they are. I am super, super happy with how these turned out. I think they are just awesome. I love sequins, so it's amazing. And they're sequins that I can actually just wear at home when I'm doing nothing, which is great. And I have definitely been wearing them since I made them. They are comfy and I just love them. My husband thinks I look absolutely ridiculous when I wear them around the house, but that is all right. As long as I like them, that is all that matters. So I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.